Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you have a chance to watch this video. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha. I am the owner operator of a 2-acre farmstead in Louisiana. I am debt free. I was an educator before I became an organic, no till, sustainable, carbon sequestering homesteader. Now, what I want to talk about is I ran across this video that was so concerning to me yesterday. And like 270,000 people had already watched this video talking about why farmers are turning away from Trump. And I want to tell you that that is not only a lie, it's a huge misconception because most farmers and ranchers understand this one very important thing that I'm going to share with you in this video. And we understand that the lies coming from mainstream media does not affect how we grow our food for our brothers and sisters in America. Good morning, ladies. Welcome back. As you pop on, do me just a quick favor. Make sure you are subscribed. Hit your notification bell so that you get notification that when I'm going live or putting up a video. Please hit the like button, drop over in comments. Tell me who you are, where you're watching from. Good morning, Miss Susan, Miss Lori, and Miss Kelly, my first 3 ladies on the live today. So let's just start with something most people do not realize. That right now in America, less than 500,000 people are illegals or undocumented, as they like to call themselves, pickers of your fruits and vegetables. Less than 500,000. Let that sink in. Okay. So when you're hearing people claim that the fruits and the vegetables are going to rot in the field and you are going to starve, or you can't afford the food if the migrants weren't allowed to pick them, that's lies. Okay. First off, any large ranch or farm that is predominantly using immigrants to pick their food, shame on you. And I hope people send you this video because a lot of people don't understand this, but hired farm workers make up less than 1% of all U.S. wage and salary workers. Okay. According to data from the 2022 Census of Agriculture, wages and salaries plus contract labor costs represent about 12% of the production expenses of a farm, but 42% for greenhouses and nursery operations, and 40% for fruit and tree operations. Hired farm workers are found in a variety of occupations, including field crop workers, nursery workers, livestock workers, graders and sorters, agricultural inspectors, supervisors, and hired farm managers. The majority are wage and salary workers, hired directly by farmers, but some are employees of agricultural service companies, including farm labor contractors. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What a lot of people don't understand is that there was a program called the National Agricultural Worker Survey, NAWS, that interviewed workers employed on U.S. crop farms each year and was a known source of farm worker data. The NAWS finds that 70% of crop workers were born in Mexico, and 70% of Mexican-born workers are unauthorized, making half of U.S. crop workers illegal aliens. These workers, many of whom arrived illegally in the 1990s and early 2000, in their 20s are now in their 40s and 50s. The U.S. educated children from them generally shun seasonal farm jobs that brought their parents from Mexico to here. So, like most children, they don't want to do what mom and dad did, but they were born in the U.S., called anchor babies. The NAWS was launched to understand the impacts of the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 on the farm labor market. the IRCA included the grand bargain that remains at the heart of agricultural immigration reform: legalize all of the unauthorized farm workers and make it easier for farm employers to hire temporary migrant workers. IRCA failed to produce a legal farm workforce. It had two amnesty programs: a general amnesty for unauthorized foreigners who lived in the United States since 1982, and a special agricultural worker SAW program for unauthorized farm workers who did at least 90 days of farm work from 1985 to 1986. This was one of the biggest illegal alien scams because 1.7 million foreigners were legalized as citizens under the general program and 1.1 million under the SAW program, and 85% of those were Mexicans. It turned into one of the most extensive immigration frauds ever perpetuated against the United States government. Now, I know that all of this, Diane Cameron, yeah, I think yours came in yesterday, or it might be in the mail for today. I'll let you know when I receive it, sweetie. What bothers me, and I know that's a lot of gibberish that you just heard me talk, is this insane nonsense being perpetuated by YouTubers, right? Oh my gosh, like crops are dying in the fields and USAID and do you know why most farmers and ranchers just laugh when we hear that? Because we understand that these programs for illegal undocumented agricultural workers was a scam. Do you understand that a farmer that hires a bunch of illegal aliens does not have to pay into workman's comp or Social Security when they pay wages on that illegal alien? Did you know that? Do you know that most of them make somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year and still have to pay to live here to work? It's slave wages, people. They won't even get Social Security from it because the farmer's not paying into it. So rather than pay a living wage with workman's comp, Social Security, all of that good stuff for an American citizen, they would rather pay pennies on the dollar for an illegal alien. Now, I'm going to link all the videos and all the documentation that I used today to discuss this topic in the description of this video, because this is an issue near to my heart, because I hire local people to work on my small farmstead. It is an honor and a privilege to support my community of tax-paying Americans with a job in my rural community. And if more farmers would stop being slave owners, you would see rural communities go up. It never ceases to amaze me how liberals can throw a fit about less than 500,000 people picking crops. But they aren't out there talking about how these people have horrific living spaces, how they, for years, did not have bathrooms. That only happened in the last 6 years, that farmers and ranchers of these colossal size 1,000-acre farms actually had to put porta potties out there. Why? Look it up. California started getting hepatitis A from strawberries, from lettuce, because the migrants, the illegal undocumented people who had no right to call USDA or the government, the EPA, and say, hey, we don't have actual bathrooms. They were peeing and pooing on top of the vegetables that you were eating, and people were getting sick. So it really frustrates me to see educated Americans okay with slave labor for less than livable wages, and then you call yourself good? You want to judge us for saying stop the illegal undocumented people into this country? You want to lecture us? You've got these people crapping in strawberry fields, working with 10-year-olds who aren't in school, so you don't have to pay so much for your pistachio nuts? Yeah, I think everybody knows exactly how I feel about that. So let me show my video I found last night. I thought I was going to throw up because this woman claims, she's all liberal and loves the earth. And then she goes on to say all this nonsense.
Farmers have not yet turned on Trump. After all, he's cut farm-to-table programs. He's cut farm-to-school lunch programs. He's cut all kinds of funding for, structural improvements, drainage, climate resilience programs. He's cut all kinds of grant funding for farmers all across this country. He's cut USAID that has cost America's farmers billions. Ask farmers in Nebraska how they're doing right now. We are seeing silos full of corn and wheat and sorghum that go unsold. The government, United States government, had promised to buy these crops, and then they pulled the contracts because Elon Musk gutted USAID. And all of this food, not just grains, but also milk that is turned into powdered milk that was meant to go and secure our interests abroad and feed hungry people, is now sitting unsold in the United States of America. And that is hurting our farmers. Why are more of them not pissed off? And somebody else said, well, why are more farmers not freaking out that all of their migrant labor is being snatched by ICE? We are seeing ICE running into farm fields, snatching migrants who are toiling, picking our food, the food to feed the American people. They are coming in and tackling and snatching these folks, abducting them and stuffing.
Can you get any more ignorant and be educated? Did you hear what she said? They're toiling, but they're toiling for slave wages. You didn't mention that. They live in roach-infested, mice-infested housing that's been built in the 70s, cinder block houses on these mega farms without air condition in most of them. But she don't have a problem with that. They have inadequate health care, inadequate education and childcare while they're toiling in the fields to pick food to feed Americans. But it's actually less than 500,000 people that do this type of job. See, most of us farmers and ranchers and homesteaders do the work ourselves, or we hire other American citizens and we train them up in how to do it. What blows my mind is the complete disconnect with reality that you get. I think she seriously needs to worm herself. She needs to worm herself because something's controlling this woman where she can't see the truth. How many of you understand that the migrant workers running in the fields in California, that was a weed form? They were growing marijuana, Mary Jane. Yeah, token up on some marijuana. Yeah, that's what they were growing. How many of you understand that there were 14 unaccompanied minor children in those fields toiling away? And that's illegal, my friends and family of the internet. Illegal to have children toiling in the field. I don't know about you, but it reminds me of plantation times back in the day when the black folks were out there with their little black children toiling in the cotton fields and the sugarcane fields, and the Irish people that were brought here in slavery and forced with their fair, pale skin to burn repeatedly in tropical climates they were never meant to live in to make someone else rich. Tammy, I don't know what you're talking about. But actually, sweetheart, I don't know if you're talking to me or her. Yeah, good for you, Leslie. I don't know who she's talking to, but she better check herself, because let me tell you guys what I found that is heartbreaking about this situation. And then I will let you listen to the rest of what this woman says. Right now, across America, hold on.
1,000 tender age kids. How you like that? Now, according to Ms. Hopper's research, which I find fascinating, everybody up here should, 70% of the documentation turned in by so-called sponsors, which were lined up by who? The NGOs. Through who? Primarily HHS. There's a pipeline, man. We fed a pipeline of tender age children into sex trafficking and slave labor into our country. We're finding these kids. We're tracking this fraudulent documents. You're right, Ms. Hopper. My research showed a little bit less, 65%. You said 70%. I'll go with 70. So be advised. Be advised. We are building out case files, criminal case files. We're interviewing these 35,000 kids, and we're finding out exactly what the hell happened, how they ended up in the nightmare where they were, and we're rescuing more. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. We're going to identify these children. We're locating these children. We're rescuing these children, and we're building out criminal files based upon the testimony of these young teenagers and the documentation of fraudulent vetting. And many of these NGO employees are going to find themselves wearing orange, be their new favorite color. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the indulgence. I yield.
So all these people, they keep cheering on what happened in California. That is what they use. Let me find it for y'all. ICE raids California weed farm. Because I was looking at it earlier. No, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. And I was reading it, and I was so disgusted by what I was reading. And this is where I get frustrated with people. America's farmers and ranchers do not need illegal slave labor on their farms. They should be forced to hire people, American citizens, or people with the correct legal documentation. This is called economic terrorism. It says ICE and CBP arrest at least 361 illegal aliens during marijuana grow site operation. They rescued 14 children. 14. They also arrested violent and dangerous criminal illegal aliens during this operation. Several of these men have been arrested for murder in their home countries, terrorism, or child molestation. That's what you want in your country, America? This is who you want picking your food? Child molesters? How about convicted rapists in their home countries and they come to America to get away from it? That's really what you want? Picking that cheap vegetable that makes you feel better about yourself? Seriously? I'm not cutting any corners, folks. I'm not going to I totally agree. And we're going to get to him, Truth Warrior. We're going to get to Alejandro Mayorkas and how he was put in this position, because there is something all the way from President Obama all the way through to President Biden. There's been one person that's never changed, that's always been there in the shadows, and that is Alejandro Mayorkas. He was trained up for this position. He knew exactly what he was going to do. They knew how to funnel the money from the government to non-governmental organizations and that's NGOs, and then how to bring those people into America. They knew it, and they also knew all they had to do was convince Americans that you would not have affordable food if you did not allow these 480,000 people to continue picking your vegetables. Well, there's only 480,000 people that pick vegetables for a living that are undocumented illegal. Who the heck are the other 29.5 million? Who are they? What are they here for? So when I hear people like this, I'm just shocked.
More of America's farm. Not pissed off. And somebody else said, well, why are more farmers not freaking out that all of their migrant labor is being snatched by ICE? We are seeing ICE running into farm fields, snatching migrants who are toiling, picking our food, the food to feed the American people. They are coming in and tackling and snatching these folks, abducting them, and stuffing them into detention facilities where billions of our taxpayer money is going to keep these people imprisoned. And someone in my comments who was from the Midwest said, oh, don't you understand, in a lot of these states, especially a lot of the grain farmers and dairy farmers, they don't actually use that much immigrant labor. If they have very mechanized, agricultural setups on their farms, then they're not really interfacing that much with migrant labor. And yes, I totally understand for those folks who are growing large amounts of soybeans and grains, that makes sense. If you don't have to interact with brown people on a regular basis, you can dehumanize them more easily. You can justify what Trump is doing more easily. But there are farmers all around the country that rely heavily, heavily on migrant labor, especially where I am on the West Coast. And they said that more of America's farmers have not yet turned.
No, she's incorrect. Yeah, exactly, Miss Patty. Farmers, especially industrial farms that are owned by people who are never there. They don't care what goes on. It's like big plantations. See, this is the thing about American history that you have to understand. When the South fell, all those plantation owners never lost their land and they never went to prison. They simply moved. They moved. They became bankers. They became politicians. They went into they just diversified, right? But they kept their money because that's what always happens. The rich people never pay for their sins. They just kept their money, their blood money, from the sugarcane plantations and the cotton plantations. And over the years, if you trace who these people are that own these 1,000-acre farms along the West and East Coast, their families are tied all the way back to the plantation owners and the slave owners in the 1800s. Do your own research. Open your own eyes. So when you hear people like her espousing that we have to have migrant labor and Trump is so wrong for removing these people, then why are most of them showing up to have history in their own country, criminal histories, and then here in America too? They've been arrested for DUIs, hit and runs, assaults, child neglect. That's what we know that they've done here. Then when they start backtracking to their own countries, they find out, wow, they were doing that there because humans don't change that much, right? They were bad there and now they're bad here. But what shocks me is your inability to understand that you can't let in 29.5 million people just so you can have 480,000 field hands working as slave labor to pick some crops. What are you going to do with the other 29.5 million people? She talks about how it's going to cost $1 billion to round these people up and house them and ship them home. It's costing us billions of dollars a year to keep them inside the country because we're having to house them. None of these people that have come in under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can house themselves. They can't. Where do you think they're living? How do you think they're living? I mean, are people that stupid that they think it's not costing us money to have them in the U.S., just costing us money to put them in an ICE facility? Like, are you that disconnected from reality? You can't be. I rebuke it off of you. Come on, America. They are trafficking children into America and losing these babies. And because they cut USAID, you're upset? Do you know what they used USAID for? Do you? Let me show you, friends, because I believe in receipts. Let me show you what USAID has been used for repeatedly.
Job of trying to bring about regime change. It has secret bank accounts, shell companies. USAID gets $50 billion a year in U.S. taxpayer money. That's a larger overt fund than the CIA has. USAID perhaps is the new CIA.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably.
This is not just about over there. This is about here.
They have a process, a system by which they destroy other nations, and they use that same process and system in order to destroy the United States.
It's a plot against our own people.
America, what if I told you that the United States government was acting like the world's Gestapo, using organizations like USAID under the pretense of humanitarian aid to topple governments, install politicians, and orchestrate regime changes in third world countries?
I disagree with that as somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat. Not here, but, other places.
These are places that are practically entirely run at this point by the CIA and the U.S. State Department, which is, of course, a CIA front.
USAID provides most of the money.
This isn't a giveaway.
The State Department provides the policy vision.
This makes a difference to people's perception of us. Tricky endeavors, whether it's fighting terrorism,
Al-Shabaab groups in USAID camps,
or narcotics,
Joe Biden's State Department is commanding the Taliban to keep the opium flowing.
or oppression, or resistance to governance.
Those USAID trucks were stopped at the border to Venezuela with fully automatic weapons.
All of those things.
I don't think that's humanitarian aid.
What a difference that makes.
And if we stand for democracy anywhere, we have to stand for it everywhere, including in Guatemala.
Guatemala, what if I told you that USAID, the State Department, and the CIA created a fraudulent political party and then used that illegitimate party to rig the 2023 Guatemalan election so they could install a list of CIA-controlled politicians who would continue to allow them to run the world's largest child trafficking network out of Guatemala?
Nothing to do with that? Correlation, not causation?
That is absurd.
They didn't deny it, which means that they admitted it.
This is no question, a political shocker in Guatemala.
The U.S. government, the Biden administration, helped cover up voter fraud.
Why Guatemala? Why not some other country?
Guatemala is concerned about child trafficking, the NGOs that are trafficking the children.
Joe Biden was the chairman of the board of Save the Children.
You guys just raided Save the Children.
Guess who stepped in? The State Department, U.S. Embassy, and USAID. Another coincidence?
America, what if I told you that DHS, under the direct orders of Alejandro Mayorkas, would create a public-private partnership with Mexican cartels, and that HHS, under the direct orders of Xavier Becerra, would create a public-private partnership with NGOs like Save the Children and Southwest Key Programs. And in this quasi-public-private partnership, they would use your tax dollars to fund the world's largest international child trafficking operation.
As to who we know where they are, that is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security.
This is nothing but lies. Nothing but lies.
Secretary Mayorkas, he acts like none of this ever happens.
It's his policies that caused over 500,000 of children being smuggled in this country.
And he also knew who to blame. HHS places those children. That's on you.
Was that a question to me?
Are you familiar with the sponsors that utilize a strip club as an address? You shrug your shoulders and then send another batch of kids out to sponsor.
Human trafficking bust at an egg farm. Federal prosecutors call it modern-day slavery.
Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking.
Another lie.
Clearly, in the job
I implore you. Most of you are good people. You're good people. You have a conscience. You know right from wrong. You know what has happened in this country is not okay. You know it is not okay. But there are people and YouTube channels that just can't seem to understand that we had to defund USAID. It is the largest funder of drugs, weapons, and children in the entirety of the world. And I wanted to respond. I noticed that Miss Morty, you said my question is why our American people think they're too good to go out and work in the fields. Why do you think that, Miss Morty? Who told you that? Mainstream media? Social media? What do I do every single day? What was I doing before I did this video? Anybody know? I was working in 100-degree weather outside. That's why I'm wearing this, because I'm overheated. I was literally working in a field. So don't do that, Miss Morty. Don't parrot back to me what someone else told you to say, because I work in the fields every single day. And there are a lot of people who do. It's not that we're too good to work in the field. We just understand we won't work in the fields when it's not safe. We won't cover up the illegal activities of farmers and ranchers where they're cutting corners, when they're abusing their livestock, when they're not following health and safety regulations on food packaging. We're not going to cover that up for them. But illegal aliens will, because one, they don't know, and two, they have to, or someone will get rid of them. So I'm just saying, stop saying Americans won't work in fields. We've done it most of our lives and most of our families' lives. There are reasons people won't go work for these large farms and large livestock and CAFO systems. Open your eyes and do your research at the abuse of the animals that happen in those systems. And then come back and have a conversation with me about why Americans won't work for those companies or in those situations, and why they have to have illegal aliens there. And then let me ask you this question. Why are illegal aliens okay with abusing animals? Are they being forced to do it? Then that would be slavery. And again, I go back to the 1800s, where it sure does look like large plantations with a whole bunch of slaves on there when you find children working in a marijuana field. I'm just saying. "20 arrested in an international operation targeting child sexual abuse." Interpol, Crimes Against Children Unit, facilitated follow-up sessions between authorities to align operational efforts with Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, and Paraguay. This included in-person meetings on the sidelines of the Specialist Groups on Crimes Against Children's Conference in April of 2025. Arrests across 12 countries between March and May of 2025. Searches carried out during the operation resulted in the seizure of desktop computers, laptops, mobile phones, tablets, and digital storage devices. Latin America, through Interpol's support, authorities arrested 10 suspects in the 7 target Latin American countries, including 3 in El Salvador and a teacher in Panama. The remaining suspects were arrested elsewhere in Europe and the United States. This is worldwide. It's worldwide. How do you think they got it off? They used USAID. By the way, folks, we do not get paid by YouTube. My content is considered harmful because I'm not curbing my tongue anymore. The truth has to come out. If you appreciate this down-to-earth, receipt-backed up type of commentary, please pray about supporting us financially if you would be led to do so. You can look in the top of comments. It'll be pinned at the top at the end of the live. If you will add your email to the memo of whatever you send, I'll get you hooked up with our newsletter and send you the Zoom link. We will be going live on Zoom July 26th at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, let's continue. I don't know if I'll be going live or even doing a video tomorrow. My husband is going to be in New Orleans at Wound Care for his health. So you guys just keep me in prayer. If I can make it back in time to do a live or a video, I will. This is how they move them.
So they get an express line over here. They get an express line. If you're an illegal child, you get an express line. Niño, ¿dónde están tus padres? ¿Dónde están tus padres? How those guys operate. So we're here at the TSA checkpoint again, and we got 2 children here at the TSA checkpoint with 2 MVM escorters. I just told that escorter with the hood on, who's trying to cover his face, that he better not molest these children in the airplane, or else he's gonna have a problem with me and the American people, because we know that happens quite frequently, where these children are being molested by these MVM employees and these NGOs. So. All right, so she's one of the NGOs is now handing over some type of paperwork. As you know, a lot of these illegal aliens don't have to show ID. She's handing him a document, probably the notice to appear. These children also get notices to appear in court. They're given an attorney by the government, paid attorney, and they cannot be deported, by the way. These children cannot be deported back to their country alone without any escort or any guardian or any parent. So it's in the gray area. So the TSA employee is now saying, what is your name? He's also asking the name for the young boy here. What is his name? You're catching this live, everybody. Sorry for the having to reconnect. But this is just what happens at the airport. The 2 boys, now the escorters are being screened here. And off they go into the gate, never to be seen again. That might be the last time you ever see those two children again alive. Because we know. All right.
That's not the only one. That's not the only one I found like that. And we're going to watch them today. In July of 2011, there was a story uncovered about a fake child. Y'all see what I'm doing? Program that was run by the CIA. It then emerged that Dr. Shaquille Afrida, the person organizing the CIA's, had claimed that he was a Save the Children employee. In May of 2012, Save the Children's country director for Pakistan, David Ritt, revealed that the organization's work had been badly disrupted ever since Afridi had made his claim, with medicines held up for long periods at airports, staff unable to get visas, and so forth. Ritt also charged the CIA had breached international humanitarian law and risked the safety of aid groups worldwide. It was a covert operation utilizing a fake hepatitis program in Pakistan to illicitly collect blood samples to confirm the presence of bin Laden or his family. The CIA recruited a physician, Shaquille Afrida, to administer these fake and take DNA instead.
Entire world, the U.S. border is open. Entire world, the U.S. border is open. So people are coming, and they're coming from Africa and the Middle East and from Asia. And, of course, from all over this continent, the South American continent. But you see, these countries that they're passing through don't want them. The migrant crisis is so enormous that they can't stop it. So what do? They set up aid stations in order to help these people move along. Don't stay here. Don't stay in our country. We know you're headed to the United States. Here's a little medicine. Here's a little bit of money. Here's a little bit of food. Now move on. But where's the money coming from for this? kind of operation. I mean, these are enormous operations. Yes? Well, take a look here. You got a sign right here, if you can see it. It tells you that the aid is coming from the USA, and that's exactly what's happening here. So you essentially have the Biden administration that is aiding and abetting in human trafficking. That's exactly what we're seeing happening here.
So every time I hear somebody talking about how Americans ended USAID and now children are going hungry in the Middle East and AIDS patients aren't getting their injections in Africa, it infuriates me because one, what you don't realize is that Trump did not stop the AIDS medication going to Africa. He made sure that program was still going. In fact, a lot of USAID is still getting through, but it was such a huge program, getting 50 billion a year. It was easy to hide it. It gets more money than the CIA every year. In fact, let me find where I have all of that for you guys. It says, all right, in 2024, 45, wait, that's a different program. Hold on. Okay. The USDA just announced they're ending 145 DEI contracts totaling over 148 million. This is what the USDA, which is food, right? Because you heard the woman saying they stopped the grant programs, 2.5 million for expanding equitable access to land capital and market opportunities for underserved producers in the Bay Area. 575,000 for educating and engaging in socially disadvantaged farmers on conservation practices. 192,000 to create a new model for urban forestry to lead to environmental justice through more equitable distributed green spaces. Okay. 100,000 for climate resilience and sustainable agriculture in Ghana. 361,000 for gender non-conforming, non-binary, two-spirit, BIPOC farmers in New York. Now, this is what most of you do not understand because you don't write grants. You may be a homesteader or whatever, but I'm actually listed as a farm. That's why Samantha goes under farmstead. I produce thousands of pounds of food off my 2 acres every single year. I work with the USDA and I work under grants. The majority of grant money never makes it to the farmer. Instead, 45% is taken off the top to pay whoever wrote the grant and their staff for running the grant. Right now, the new rules, if your grant made it through the cuts to USDA, made it through the cuts to USAID, it's because the majority of the money they're getting has to go to people, real people like me, people like you, not to executives, not to planes, not to paying for their dinners. What they did is they just trimmed the fat. And you know who the fat was going to? To the NGOs. To congressmen. You'd be amazed at how many of your senators and your congressmen have either stock or money tied up in corporate forms where they have slave labor and an illegal, undocumented farmers. Yeah. It's so easy to sit down and listen to a middle-aged woman on YouTube tell you how bad Trump and his administration is. They're just chasing innocent brown people down in fields. That's all they're doing. These brown people just want a better life. They're really good people, and shame on you. Who's going to pick your vegetables? I'm going to pick my vegetables like I've been doing for the past 5 years. I don't believe in slavery at all. Secretary Rollins started with 148 million cut from DEI programs at the USDA. The agency has already eliminated over 5.5 billion in wasteful contracts and grants, redirecting funds away from climate slush funds and gender consultants back to the farmers that actually need them. Canceling all these climate smart commodities programs prevented bureaucrats from pocketing nearly half of that 5.5 billion as a profit. Yeah. If you look at IAF, which is another part of like the USDA, in 2024, 45% of what they was spent to administrative overhead. Only 55% went to the grants, which then have multiple additional layers of overhead. Other grants, which were canceled during the process of reducing the IAF to its statutory minimum, they found 523,000 going to an avocado marketing in Honduras, not growing, in marketing avocados in Honduras. Why is that not being spent in America? We have avocado growers in America. 770,000 for chocolate farming in Peru. I know people on Maui that have chocolate farms. That money could have been spent in America, folks, on American farmers. Then you have artisanal weaving in Mexico and agro-tourism in St. Lucia. The Inter-American Foundation, known as the IAF, an agency whose primary action was to issue foreign grants with a $60 million a year budget, has been reduced to its statutory minimum of one active employee now. In other words, no more. No more. Trump administration accessed $3 billion worth of smart climate farmer programs. The USDA just pulled the plug on a $3 billion Biden-era plan meant to help farmers fight climate change. The program funded 135 projects in 50 states, backing stuff like healthier soil, cutting methane, and storing carbon. How radical, right? It handed cash to everyone from soy seed traders, groups like Archer Daniels Midland. It gave everybody money but the actual farmers. Now, only projects that earmark money to be given directly to farmers by New Year's of 2024, where 65% of the funding has to be given to farmers, will actually be funded. So when you're hearing these radical leftists tell you they cut all funding to farmers, they are lying to you. They cut any grant where the money was going to anyone other than the farmer. Okay? So I sat through a grant in Louisiana the other day and listened to them. All the money has to be spent on farmers. The only reason they were still funded was because the money has always been sent to the farmer. But see, that's what y'all don't understand when you're listening to these people espousing their political opinions and mixing it with so many different topics. 200 and almost 30,000 people had listened to that woman's video, claiming that everything Trump had done was terrible. It was terrible, horrible. And she was wrong on so many fronts that it made my skin crawl. Let me find the rest of what I wanted to share with y'all. The NAWS portrays, I talked about this earlier in the video, portrays a crop workforce that resembles other low-wage workforces. It's talking about illegal, undocumented farm workers. Almost all crop workers commute to the farm where they work by either carpool or car, or return to housing that is rented either by the farm owner or by other people they're working with. Over 80% of these workers interviewed by the NWAS are employed in fruit, vegetable, and horticulture specialty farms. It says NWS interviewers who must obtain the employer's permission to interview workers at work may be obtaining data from a subset. Did you hear what I just read? The people that hire, the farms that hire these illegal undocumented workers, the government can't even speak to these workers without the farm's permission. That's slavery. Why do U.S. farmers spend $5,000 to recruit, transport, and house each H-2A guest worker if they could just hire U.S. workers? Well, farmers say they hire H-2A workers because U.S. workers are not available. That's a lie. However, a closer look reveals several items that reduce the cost gap between an H-2A worker and a U.S. worker. First, the earnings of an H-2A worker are exempt from Social Security and other payroll taxes of 8 to 12%, saving the farmer $1,600 of additional money each year for a guest worker who only makes $16,000. Second, H-2A workers are young Mexican men who are earning 5 to 10 times more than they would earn in Mexico. So they work hard and are 20 to 30% more productive than older, more diverse U.S. farm workers, including the unauthorized Mexican men who arrived in the 1990s. Third, most H-2As are employed to produce perishable crops. So farmers who want to ensure that workers are available even when the weather is not right. What you don't understand is that American workers have unions. Yeah, even field hands have unions. And there are rules. The USDA has put out rules for things like heat stroke. I did a video on this last year because there were illegal undocumented workers dying in the fields of heat stroke. So I don't want to be told one more time that I am a bad person because I don't want illegals picking my flipping crops. I don't want children trafficked into my country where they are lost and abused. And if you can't understand that, the problem isn't me, it is you. Over 1,000 kids were illegally employed in dangerous meatpacking plant jobs. This was 2023. Some as young as 13 were employed in hazardous jobs cleaning equipment like skull splitters, brisket saws, and bone cutters in meat packing plants in 8 states over the course of 3 years, says the Department of Labor. They have already had to pay. It's owned by the Blackstone Group. All these large corporations also have NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that get money through grants, through USAID and other organizations, USDA being one of them, to not only transport these unaccompanied, illegal, undocumented children, but then to lose them within the country. They just lose them, people. It's all tied together. It's so tied together that you cannot separate it. probably Camper 14. They're probably, Blackstone is probably one of the like smaller companies of BlackRock. Somebody look into that and let me know. But when I see YouTubers not smart enough to connect the dots between undocumented illegal workers, child trafficking, USAID, USDA, because of your hate of conservatives, because of your hate of God, you will not allow yourself to see the truth that when you're voting these hard line liberal Democrat policies, you are facilitating child trafficking, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. The Democrat Party has always been the party of slavery. Now, I have a big problem with the rhinos on the Republican Party, like Senator Cassidy of Louisiana. I'll do everything in my ability to make sure that man doesn't get back in. That is why on this channel, we group you guys by state. Regardless of what party you are, if you're a Christian, you should be signing up for our newsletter and joining us on Zooms so that you can group up by state, so you guys can talk about your elected officials and start putting together ways to get these people out of office, folks. Because it is the same bird, two different wings of the same bird. It's just that I know my history, and I know that the Democrat Party has always been the slave party. It has always been the party that wanted to remove women's rights to vote and everything else. They didn't want blacks to vote. They didn't want whites to vote. When you go back and look, the first black politicians ever in American history were Republican. We are not the fascist people. It's not us. We voted for Trump because we were tired of watching children being dragged across the southern border and then lost in our country. Do I think Trump's perfect? No. I don't think anybody's perfect but Jesus. But I understand I had a whole lot better chance of getting to the bottom of this with Trump than anybody else. Because Kamala Harris was implicit to the end, baby. She was the border czar, and she had that border wide open. My friend JJ Carroll, who worked as a border patrol agent, I've had him on this show before. The things he'll tell you, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Do I think that every person that worked for USAID knew what was going on? No. Just like everybody that was part of Boy Scouts didn't know about all the sexual molestation going on. But it doesn't mean that bad things weren't happening in USAID just because somebody you know worked there that didn't know it was happening. So what I'm trying to tell y'all is that when Trump starts slashing things, it's because it's tied to child trafficking. And he's smarter. So just sit back and let the man play 5D chess. He has to. Because if y'all really want to know, let me see if I can find it. Did I record it? I don't know if I showed y'all this one. Yep, I showed y'all that one. Let me show you this one.
Let's go number 3. Let's go number 4. ¿De qué país son ustedes, señoras? México. You got MVM over here. MVM. Compass Connections. Family Endeavors. Which one are you? ¿Dónde vas a ir? Where are you going? We got a female adult, 3 young girls, boy, another one over there.
He's an escorter. I recognize his face. Southwest Keys. These are the escorters for Southwest Keys. These are the children. And that's the last escorter. Southwest Keys, I believe, are transporting these illegal aliens with their Catholic uniforms. They just arrived from Los Angeles. Fernando Arce here, citizen reporter.
I will feel vindicated when I see Barack.
And I really like that guy. I found those on X, but everything I've talked about here, guys, everything I've referenced, I'll put it in the description of the video. I really pray more of you will row in the boat with us, because the more of you that get into these groups and Zooms by state, the more powerful you become. If you understand at all what's happening in this country, whatever you can afford, whether that's $1, $10, $100, or $1,000, send it with your email so that I can get you grouped up. We're going to be Zooming again, July 26th at 7 p.m., introducing you guys to your new state leaders and separating y'all out so that y'all can start collecting data, so that you become empowered. You take back your territory. I can't take back the whole United States by myself, folks. All I can do is be a facilitator to group you guys up and send you guys out. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, right now I pray that you will open the eyes of your children and you will open the ears. Father, these people on YouTube that are claiming that somehow removing these undocumented people from this country that have come here to work as slaves, open their eyes, Father. Open these people's eyes. These people will never be able to be citizens. They owe a debt to the darkness and the cartels, and they will never be free in this country. They need to be sent back. And if they want to come the right way, it'll have to happen through you, Father. No good person comes through that border like these people have under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Lord, the children that are lost in this country, we pray for the answers, Father. We pray over these children right now that you would set them free. Comfort them with your angels. Guard us with your shield and your buckler. Strengthen us for the fight that we must fight. As we draw near to the end time, Lord, I pray that each and every person will get to know you as their personal Savior, that Jesus will wash them clean. And I pray this and I ask this in the only name that matters, Jesus. Amen. I love you guys so much. Be blessed.